All right. Well, hi, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm so glad to be starting off 2024. This kind of seems to be the common theme of we don't really kind of know what's happening, but we figure it out. So all is well. We're so glad you all are here, our speakers, as well as our guests. So thank you for taking the minute to be here today or viewing this if you're viewing this after we've recorded it. For those of you who don't know, Care for Nurses is a space for nurses to come and just engage in conversation, realize you're not alone, get additional support where you may need it, and also kind of as a way to give back and provide support to other nurses who may need it. So again, thanks for being here. Today we have Deanna Irick. She's going to do part 2 of anxiety. Deanna, I was so excited when I was kind of anticipating and thinking, what is she going to say? If you caught her the part 1 of anxiety, she gave us some very practical tips. And I want to share just really quickly how I was able to, when I was on vacation over break, we had the amazing opportunity to get on a cruise ship, but it was bad weather. And so we were really rocking, and I typically do pretty good, but it was just, I was sensory overload, right? I was tired. We had all the noises and sights and sounds and smells, and it was just overwhelming. As well, we did find out that my oldest has a nut allergy we didn't know about. So a lot of things were hitting me at once. And I was laying there and I felt my body going into the panic state. I said, oh no, I'm getting ready to hit a panic attack. And I kept trying to self, I'm okay. And nothing was working. And then I remembered this, right? For those of you who can't see, I have one hand on my belly and one hand here. And I started breathing and I was able to calm my body before it flipped into a panic mode. And so thank you for that practical tip. It actually worked. And I just found myself thinking about that this morning. I wanted to share and say thank you for that. So I'm going to pass it over to you and kind of let you kind of get started. Real quick before you do, though, for those of you who are joining us live, if you have questions or comments, please use the chat feature. Mike will kind of grab those and kind of ask any question that you may have. If you are listening to this recorded, still use the comment feature, because we are going to monitor that. Deanna will be able to come in and answer any questions you have. So even if you're not here with us live today, there's still ways for you to engage.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Elizabeth. And I do find that people who use that do well with it. It's just the constant reminder to do it, right? As we talked about last time, the difference between anxiety and stress is that stress is external factors coming in at you, and anxiety is the internal coming out, right? So a lot of times we don't think about it in that kind of concrete way, but that's the easiest way to describe it. So I want you to think about, if it's coming from the inside out, you think about a volcano, right? A volcano we call sitting dormant. Well, it's not really sitting dormant. So I can't look at you and see that you have anxiety until I start seeing you do things like shake and start to stutter. And so think about a volcano. It starts to shake, it starts to stutter, some steam comes off. So you get irritable, maybe even a little defensive. Things start to happen when you have all this internal anxiety happen. And so we see it start to come out in ways that people don't identify as anxiety. You get snappy with your kids, they think you're mad, right? So I want you to think about, as a nurse, you're constant. There's constant stress. So we talked about this a little bit last time. The externals, the noise of the hospital, alarms going off, having to listen to a doctor that maybe is super condescending, and you're just on the inside going, blah, 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 and the doctor's just, right? So you have all these kind of things. So that's external stress coming in. But the body, when it reaches a peak, doesn't know the difference between internal and external. And so it looks the same. So when you see somebody like me, a therapist, we're going to say, oh, your heart's racing. But that's external stress, and you can do something about that. Well, the reason we say that is, if it's external, it's a lot easier to handle than the internal. Okay. If I know that I'm overloaded and I need to take a break, I can usually remove myself for a second or two and calm down and then go back in. Anxiety doesn't say, oh, let me give you a break, right? Once it starts, it's there unless you're actively doing something with it. And so we see anxiety again back to this volcano in ways that Kira had brought up earlier, like vomiting and all over body shakes and kind of things. So there is a nerve. If you hum for a second, there's a nerve right there in your throat. And that is the top of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the one that runs through our whole body. Like it is like the main nerve through the whole body. So if that vagus nerve gets stimulated, then the whole body gets stimulated. And the problem with it is that it remembers every other time that you've had something going on and you've reacted. So it's not that you're just reacting to this one particular time. It's the vagus nerve saying, oh, look out, we're going to die. Like it's an instant survival kick in. And people really want to be able to say, oh, you can handle that. Well, you can't if you haven't done the training first. Okay. So if something's happening to me, so now I'm a nurse and I'm in the middle of the hospital and a code goes off. Code blue, is that the one that you have to respond to, drop everything you're doing and respond? Is that the one? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Whatever that code is that you have to drop everything and respond to the code. Okay, I'm in the middle of maybe putting in an IV, and this code goes off that I'm supposed to respond to right now, and I'm in the middle of putting in an IV. I've got to finish what I'm doing before I can respond. So now internally, my whole body's going, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. And you have a really hard time paying attention to what you're supposed to be doing to get that IV set for you to be able to run. Okay. That is the best way that I can describe this internal anxiety, because now the vagus nerve has kicked off and there's not a clear, rational, okay, I have to do this and then I do that and then I do the other thing and then I can respond. It's, I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be there. And then you start with, what if I don't get there in time? What if somebody dies and it's my fault? And, you know, so all of those kind of things that start, that cause that super anxiety to happen. So what we're trying to do is calm the vagus nerve. That's really what all the things that we ever talk about with anxiety is, trying to calm that nerve. And that's why when you put your hand here and your hand on your belly and you take a deep breath, it helps, because where is this thumb sitting? Right? Yeah. It's an interesting thing. We don't think about it, but this is an automatic. Your thumb automatically sits there. When you soothe your child, you hold the back of their head right here. They're right underneath here, right? If you have an infant. If you think about, I want you to think about if you have a partner that you hug, where does your head go? Right? Almost everything that we do is really right here. When I talk to people about how are you feeling, where is it getting stuck? Almost always it's stuck right here. Yeah. Top of the vagus nerve. Right? Because all the other things that are happening in our body are attached to that particular nerve. It's a really interesting thing. The other thing is if you sit this way, so this is the back, you know, that's the lizard brain right back here. And here's your vagus nerve right here. They're attached. Okay. So when your vagus nerve acts up, so does your breathing and your heart rate. We don't think about these things as normally, like, so normally we breathe. And normally our heart beats the way it's supposed to. And we blink like we're supposed to until that vagus nerve is stimulated. And now all of a sudden our heart's going, right? We get the sweats, we might vomit, we have all these gooey, ucky things that happen in our body because we have a total body stimulation. It's not just one thing. And that's what makes anxiety so difficult for people, because it's not just one thing happening. It's the whole body experience that's happening. Okay. So now that I've kind of overwhelmed you with all of that.
I just had a question, if that's okay, real quick before we go. So you had mentioned that the vagus nerve remembers.
Mhm.
So, like, when you are experiencing that, does your mind also remember? Like, are you now you have to go back through like everything basically, a quick flashback of everything that's ever made you like, say throw up because of anxiety or whatever?
Mhm. Which is why each time it happens, it gets stronger.
Mm.
If you have anxiety, when you first get anxiety, it typically is not as strong because you don't realize what's happening. What? You go to the hospital because I'm having a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
It's still strong, but it's not, oh, I have anxiety. Oh, this is anxiety. There's something wrong with me. And I think that as we progress through understanding ourselves, that it gets stronger and stronger because we now see it as a fault in ourselves instead of just something we have,
Mm.
right?
That makes sense because I have a friend who I've tried to talk to him about like, look, this is anxiety. I've talked with this person who's really good at it, has some tips for you. And he brings up right away, don't talk about it because that makes me think there's something wrong with me. And that gives me anxiety in itself. That's
Yes.
exactly what you
Yes.
said.
I hear that a
Vicious
lot.
circle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a,
Yeah.
and so, hi, Deb. Um,
Hi.
so,
Sorry. Yeah.
no worries. And so it is at the beginning, right? I want you to think about when you're going to the doctor because something's wrong and you don't know what. We have this internal anxiety about, oh my gosh, there really is something wrong. There really is something wrong. And we want a diagnosis so we know what it is because we believe that if we know what it is, we'll be able to better handle it. Well, then we get the diagnosis and it didn't change anything,
Mm.
except it gave us a name
Mm-hmm.
for what's going on, right? And then depending on how strong your anxiety is, you go to Google.
Mm.
Google it and you find out how bad it could be. So,
Yeah.
so it's just one of those things. And yes, people will say that. And my recommendation is when you hear that, really and truly just teach them this basic one, the hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and teach them how to breathe there because
Yeah.
you can learn that without having to work on your anxiety, without having to go, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. That one is just a basic skill
Mhm.
and it's helpful everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about when you get a phone call from your kid's principal, right? As soon as you see the school calling you in the middle of the day, your heart automatically elevates
Yeah.
because we all go to, oh my gosh, something's wrong. Not, oh, we're having a bake sale or the kids are having a ball game tonight. No, we go to something's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So that elevation is a very normal elevation, um, a very normal progression. And it's just, even in that moment, if you have practiced this, you can bring yourself back down and really hear what they say. Which is
So,
what,
do you think?
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you think people with anxiety tend to magnify the outcomes more so? And is it helpful if they do to point that out to them, or how do you? I just find that sometimes people, anything like you said, they magnify it to the very worst possible, and then is it easier to talk them down or just let them go through that?
Okay, so yes, they do magnify it to the nth because remember we talked about the vagus nerve and it brings everything back. So
Yeah.
and there has been a time in your life where it has been the worst possible situation, or else you wouldn't go there. But telling somebody, hey, you're a little over top. This is not a big deal, doesn't help,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? Or pointing any of that out. Really and truly, my suggestion is if you have a person like this, so just mirror. People tend to come back if they're looking you in the eye and you're sitting here like this, taking a deep breath. They're going to do that without realizing they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a mimic because what do we do as people? The people that we love, that we admire, that we're close to, we mimic them. Think about, behaviors. If we have a friend group, we eventually all end up with at least one of the same behavior. We had this same friend group for a while. It's the craziest thing. But really, if you pay attention, it's kind of in that realm. So if you do have somebody who has anxiety, Certainly you can mimic. You can mimic taking a deep breath and just do it. Talk very slowly, kind of things. Because what you're doing is you're getting that person to calm without saying you're having an anxiety attack. Because I want you to think about, if I look at you and I say you're having an anxiety attack,
you're gonna
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm worse than I thought. Yeah.
yes. So great question. Yeah.
We just start doing the behavior we kind of want them to mimic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talking slower. And so it's not helpful then to try to talk to them about the specific thing that they're stressing about, because their mind can't focus on that anyway. It's dealing with everything throughout the years.
Yeah. Right. Because what happens when our heart starts beating faster, I want you to think about if I put you in a place where you have to survive. My favorite is always the bear in the woods. If there's a bear coming to you, what are you going to do? We all think we know, but do we really? Right. But so let's say it's a bear and they're coming to you. Your heart automatically, as a survivor, is going to kick into faster heart rate. It's going to turn off the front part of your brain because you don't need that. You don't need blood there. You need blood in your heart, in your vital organs, in the top of your thighs to help you run. That's where all your blood's going to go. So your ears might tingle, your hands might tingle, because you don't need blood there in order to get away from this bear. So anxiety is a mimic of survival. And if I'm mimicking survival, I don't need blood in the back of my head. I don't need blood in my head at all. I need blood in my chest and in my legs to help me get away. And that's the instant thing that happens. Because we all have a desire to survive. So I want you to think about people who have been through some pretty traumatic events that are missing pieces of their body. And they're still alive. So truth is, all we really need to survive, or to live, if it can be called that, is our lizard brain to help us breathe and our heart to beat, and our vital organs in our chest. Everything else, depending on what's going on in your life, depends on where the blood goes. If you're a fighter, in response to a situation, the blood is going to come to the front of your hands and into your fist. And there's going to be a lot of blood put here across your chest so that you have as much power as possible. We think about, people talking about in a situation where they have to lift something that's so heavy off of maybe a child. Yeah. And they would never be able to do that without this survival thing, right? So it kicks in, and they're not even thinking, well, I didn't even realize I did that. When you talk to them, okay? Until you show them, and then they go, oh, yeah, right? So all of that is anxiety. It's survival instinct and anxiety. So if I'm a fighter, the blood's going to go across my chest into my arms. If I'm a runner, the blood's going to go into my chest and into my legs, okay? But if I'm a person who stands completely still, right, which is what panic is, I'm going to withdraw so far into myself I can't hear you. And depending on how strong your panic is, I may not be able to see you.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, because all of this kind of gets wavy, the vision kind of goes away, things like that.
So what do you, how about, if you're with a person in extreme anxiety like that, how do you feel about touching them or stroking them, or will that make them worse, or do you think that's
I think that's great. Yes, that is very calming, as long as you tell them what you're doing. Because they can hear you, they may just not be able to hear you immediately. Okay, because I want you to think about this. So now, and my husband doesn't care if I use them, so here he is. His mom, who has since passed, had a heart attack. So we went in, we talked to the doctor, and we all hear she's going to be here a while. She's had a stroke. She's had a heart attack. There's a lot of things going on. My husband hears she's fine. She's going to go home tomorrow.
Selective hearing, yeah.
But it's not. It was his anxiety had gotten so bad about the idea of losing his mom that his brain said no. In order to handle what was going on, his brain shut down and went, she'll be fine. Okay, that's how extreme it can get for people. And we get angry because somebody's not listening to us, like those kind of things. So anxiety is powerful, powerful, but it's identifying what it is first. Last time we talked about the DASS-21 and that you could go in on the web and find it. So identifying anxiety first versus stress, they're both handled roughly the same way. So I've got some different little things for you today that I've got laid out all over my desk. Okay. So if you have a pocket, I really recommend that you carry chapstick. I know this sounds ridiculous, but the idea of putting your hand in your pocket and finding something to fiddle with and actually pulling it out and putting it on your lips, it's a habit, right? Chapstick is a habit for a lot of people. So what it does is it brings you back to reality. I now have something different in my hand. I've got something touching my lips. So it pulls me back into my rational thinking brain. Okay. We don't have to have these big, huge things. These are all small things. There are strips. So now I saw the other day on Facebook where they were selling calming strips. So I'm like, okay, let me get those and see what they are. Right. So this is a strip that you would put like on your keyboard or on your somewhere, and it's got a really sticky back. Okay. But it's got this really different kind of texture. Okay. And I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying what's out there. So that's calming. It's got a different kind of texture. So everything that you can get to give yourself a place to have to feel something different than what's in the body. Because the body's going to automatically go, oh, what is that? A cold pack across the back of the neck. Because what does that do? That's a shock. None of us intentionally put ice down our neck. So, like an ice pack on the back of your neck, just really quickly pop it, put it on the back of your neck. Because your body goes, oh, what is that? And it sends that blood into a different space. Okay. There are lots of fidget spinners. Okay. And now that they've added the pops to them, these are fantastic. I had these and gave them to a lot of my clients, but since they came out with this one, I give almost all of my clients with anxiety these.
So it pops and it can repop again?
Yeah, it pops both sides.
Ah, okay.
And it's a spinner. So it's got, lots of things to play with. And so I do notice that when I give them this, they talk easier. It slows them down because this gives the brain something to focus, right? Let's see. What else do I have here? Oh, sometimes anxiety is caused by a smell, a scent, right? If you have anxiety, PTSD, part of anxiety too, and you could be out anywhere and all of a sudden you feel yourself going into this big anxiety and you don't even know why. Sometimes it's a scent. And so you can carry, like I have Balance from doTERRA just because I like that scent. Find a smell that you really like. Some people have wristbands that they have this scent that they put in every day. Some people have necklaces. There's all different kinds of things. Keep it in your pocket and you just take it out and you smell it. And sometimes off-scenting that olfactory nerve will help calm because it takes the scent out of your memory and puts something else in. Okay. So there are theirs. I love these things too. Right?
Oh, yeah, the squishies. Yeah.
Yes, because you squish them, but then you sit there and you put them back. And it has a lot of different sensory stuff in it. All right. So there's those. I have made cards that I will send to anybody who wants one. Let me know. These are my photographs from my travels, but they're also, I want you to, can I? Yeah. All right. So if you see, this is the outside is where we're heading. This is a rear view mirror where we've been. And that's just a small portrait. And that's how I look at anxiety, right? Is you're trying to see everything all at once. It's too much. And so over here, then I put just some techniques over here. For this particular one is getting out a pen and paper when you can finally think and go, okay, how did this start? Did I start it with should, would, could? Why don't I? Why can't I? Because those 5 can get you started on that spiral.
Yeah.
And changing the sentence, because usually the sentence that we use, we have implanted in there. Why can't you just be a good kid?
Mm.
How many times does someone hear that in their childhood? Not everybody, some kids. If that is a constant in your childhood, doesn't it make sense you would have anxiety?
Yeah.
Right? Why can't you just be a good kid? Can you start to write down that says, I am a good person? Because you have to offset, right? If it starts with why can't you just be a good kid? What happens when somebody kind of attacks us? We take a deep swallow. All right, remember we at the beginning we talked about the vagus nerve. The second we swallow, we're stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
And now the vagus nerve is going, trouble's coming, trouble's coming, trouble's coming. Because I don't know, because I'm not in your childhood, what followed the why can't you just be a good kid? Okay. So there's work that has to be done around that, but that's a basic. Okay. Because we do hear that a lot. Walk through Walmart and just count how many times you hear that coming out of parents' mouths. It's an interesting thing, because, I do that. Kind of crazy.
Always on the job, right?
Always. I guess
Walmart
this a
is
while.
great for research.
It really is.
So as we untangle these, like you're talking about, do those particular memories still come up when we are triggered by something new that makes us anxious? Or because we untangled them, do we not have to relive those particular ones?
Okay, so you can untangle them and it may still come up, but it won't be as strong. Okay. So as you start to untangle, like one of the things that I see a lot for therapists, right, is a person coming in the therapy's office and it looks like all this yarn that's all like, so if you're untangling, I want you to think about therapy as decreasing by 1%.
That's a good attitude.
Okay. So if you're really and truly struggling, if we can decrease that by 1%, that's a huge thing, right? Because now you have 1% usage to be able to say, oh no, that's left over. And the minute you can say, oh, that's left over, you own it now. That's left over. It's no longer important. So you can stay in the moment. And so if you think about 1%, so maybe I go to therapy for 3 months and I've decreased by 1%. Well, the next time, if I go back to therapy, maybe I can decrease by 2% because now I have the space of that 1% to be able to use to be more aware of what's happening with me. Right. And then we just decrease it each time. Right. I'm not sure how much time we have.
Well, yeah, we just hit the mark.
Okay, good. I have these cards. If anybody wants them, just let Elizabeth know, and I'll send them to you.
Okay. All right.
Send your address to Elizabeth, and she'll forward it to me, and I'll send it out. Yeah, no problem.
Many wonderful things. Oh, Deanna, thank you so much. Now I'm wondering if we need a part 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a minute, so I could probably talk more.
Much more practical. So many practical things. I find myself fiddling with change in my pocket a lot. Just my husband calls me the fiddler because I'm always, I'm playing with a rogue earring on my desk while we're talking. It's just what I do. So definitely hearing some of those tips is quite remarkable. Thank you for sharing those. I'm going to go back and listen to the recording again and make notes of that. So, well, team, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing your questions, your thoughts, your experiences. It really does help to open up the conversation and realize that you're not alone. And I kind of keep going back to that's my takeaway when we have these moments. And those of you who are listening, I certainly hope you can feel that as well. So again, if you have any comments or thoughts or even ideas or tips or suggestions, please put them in the comments. We'd love to engage with you there. We are coming back not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. What is that? The 24th of January. And Bruce Langford will be joining us again. Bruce did a little stint on mindfulness, so he'll be joining us again on the 24th. So we'd love to invite you to come join us then. If you know somebody who you think would be an incredible person to join on the podcast, please shoot us an email, text, comment, whether you or somebody that you know. We'd love to get them on here as well as a guest. So again, thank you for your time, y'all. I'm so glad, and I hope you have a wonderful new year.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth.